The resounding success of the Daily Wire has not gone unnoticed. NPR has put out a smear piece. Outrage as a business model. Ben Shapiro is using Facebook to build an empire. It's laughable. They're angry that Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire are extremely successful. And for a long time now, we've seen these leftists post things on Twitter where they're like, the top 10 posts on Facebook are Ben Shapiro, the Daily Wire, Dan Bongino, Fox News. They do that to make you think that Ben Shapiro is getting more views than anyone else. But engagements are not traffic. They're not clicks. They're comments. So what is the point of these smear pieces? Why are they smearing Ben Shapiro? Well, the Daily Wire recently did one of the most important things I think any media outlet can do right now. They started getting into the entertainment space, effectively building culture. They put out that one movie. I don't know exactly what they're working on thus far, but they're branching out into entertainment. And that means they're going to be able to influence culture if the movies are good. They're going to be able to inspire young people based on their conservative values. And of course, the media establishment, which is overwhelmingly leftist, is worried about it. I want to point out the obvious for you as we begin this. And I want to talk about why I think this story is important. There's a few reasons. First, outrage is a business model. I'm sorry. Did NPR forget that the existence of Huffington Post, or did they forget about the existence of Huffington Post or say Vox, or my favorite, Media Matters for America? Apparently, they did. They just forgot these things existed. As if to imply that Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire invented rage bait blogging. Now let's talk about what the Daily Wire is. Is it a news outlet? Yeah. Is it an opinion outlet? It is. Mostly, it is a news, opinion, and analysis from the perspective of conservatives. They don't do all that much original reporting. They aggregate and fact check and then frame things from the conservative perspective. I think that's absolutely fine. That's what the website does. They say it's what they do, and I don't see a problem with that. Now, NPR says that they don't publish fake news. They don't. The Daily Wire just writes culture war issues and conservative issues. They say in like every article that they're conservative, and they're allowed to do that. They're allowed to have conservative bias. If there is one thing I can show you right now to prove to you the game is rigged, these people are lying, and their main goal is to manipulate regular people into just falling in line, I just show you this. NewsGuard. You know I love using NewsGuard, and I'll tell you exactly why. If you go to Media Matters for America, Media Matters has written conspiracy theories, fake news, and it is far from a credible outlet. It is an anti-conservative opinion website. Well, NewsGuard says 80 out of 100 credibility. They say it doesn't handle the difference between news and opinion responsibly, nor does it disclose ownership and financing, but it gathers and presents information responsibly. No, it doesn't. I mean, look, that's my opinion for sure. I'm giving you the opinion. They once wrote, because I was reading a Star Tribune article, where the article said something about a story in which Ilhan Omar may have married a man who may have been her brother. And so I made a segment where I said, Star Tribune says Ilhan Omar may have married her brother. They literally did. They didn't say she did marry her brother. They didn't say it was confirmed. They just said there's questions about whether this man she married may have been her brother. They called me fake news and my favorite thing is they show the image where I'm reading Star Tribune. I didn't make it up. In fact, I even said in my segment, it was a may have been, and we don't know for sure, and there's no evidence. And here's what people are saying. They write fake news. Now take a look at this. The Daily Wire from NewsGuard. Oh no, they're not credible. 57 out of 100. They don't gather information responsibly. They don't correct their errors, and they don't handle the difference between news and opinion responsibly, but they don't publish fake news. I want to show you this. And the reason why I'm doing a segment on this, because I'm sure a lot of you are just like, yeah, we get it. Ben Shapiro makes great content, or you don't like Ben Shapiro or whatever. It's time for the culture war right to recognize why you must ignore these people for the most part. The economy, the information economy, it is bifurcated. It's done. I'm done playing games. OK, you want to know why I went on Ben Shapiro's show. I had Candace Owens here. I had Michael Knowles here. You want to know why I have these conversations? Because I have more in common as what was probably some kind of traditional liberal with conservatives than the modern left has with me or with them, right? So I'll put it this way. You got the left, the right, the center, and here I am, slightly center right, and here are the conservatives, center right from, just right of center, and a little bit further right, and the left is at the farthest end. They're ideological, they're authoritarian, they're too far away, I can't see them. So I look around and I say, who's here with me? Is there anybody that agrees with these values? And what do I see? Conservatives saying, America's pretty cool. And I'm like, hey, I think that's a great idea. America is pretty cool. And they're like, the founding fathers got a bunch of stuff right. And I'm like, that is true. They did get a bunch of stuff right. And then I go, and the founding fathers did get things wrong. And the conservatives are like, well, yes, but, and I'm like, no, we agree. They're good. We can have those discussions. But we ultimately agree that the path set forward by the founding fathers was amazing, is beneficial to everybody, to the whole world. It's been wonderful. Now, I don't consider myself I'm not a conservative. I wouldn't consider myself a revolutionary, but more than anything else, I suppose, reformist. There's a lot of changes we got to have, man. Federal Reserve, got to go. That's a bad thing. A lot of problems with these federal law enforcement agencies, a lot of problems with our current tax code. But I consider myself to be somebody who loves America, believes in the mission and the vision of this country, believes that we have gotten rid of so much awful, so much bad. The founding fathers weren't all perfect. There's a lot of bad stuff happening back then, but we've overcome slavery and racism. We have passed the Civil Rights Act. We have Loving v. Virginia. We just keep giving all these people civil rights, unlike many other countries that treat people based on race as second-class citizens. So I don't want to go back to that. Those reactionaries on the left who are trying to return us to the era of segregation, I ain't having none of that. I look over at conservatives. We mostly agree on all of this stuff, except for, economic policy. If we went back in time 20 or 30 years, I'd be like, yes, there's no point in bringing up that we love America, but your economic policy and your religious morals, and that's probably where we'd be. So I agree more with conservatives than I do with the modern iteration of the left, even though I'm actually left-leaning economically and culturally. The problem is they're too far left. I'm not the only one who's noticed this. You see what happens in New York. The former cop guy wins mayor. For some reason, the Democrats are doubling down on their insane and insidious cult behaviors. But here's the important thing you need to realize. Look, I see Steve Bannon. Boy, do the Trump supporters love this guy. He says, tax the rich, you're getting ripped off. And I'm like, I agree. Now, taxing the rich only works if we have sound government, and that's the problem. I don't think we do. So right now, I think taxing the rich has to come later on. Right now, we need to reform and fix our government, our tax code, our tax distribution. And then by all means, I'm in favor of taxing the rich. I'm not in favor of a flat tax. I disagree with conservatives on that. And that's fine. Hey, we love this country, and we're going to have a political debate over it. And I'm not going to support anybody who's going to go around smashing windows or attacking people or any of that. In which case, I could potentially lose that debate, and I'm totally fine with that. That's how we move forward. That's real progress. That's not what we're getting with the modern iteration of the left. So you take a look at NPR's article smearing Ben Shapiro, and what do you get? Disingenuous trash. Because everybody knows that rage bait did not start with conservatives. Or at the very least, you can argue, talk radio and Fox News. Fine. But when we're talking about blogs, Huffington Post, Vox, BuzzFeed, Vice, Mike, the list goes on. It's all they do. Let me show you what NPR is saying. And then we'll talk a bit more about this. But my main point here is I do want to show you the data behind the Daily Wire's success because, good for them. But I don't care what these people say anymore. The Southern Poverty Law Center called me a reactionary. That implies that they're on the side of the revolution. There you go. I quite literally said it. I'm not a revolutionary. I'm a reformer or reformist or whatever. Oh no, that means even though I probably agree with a bunch of things the left wants to implement because I don't want to burn everything to the ground. Now all of a sudden I'm a reactionary. No, I actually want this country to change quite dramatically in a lot of ways, like Federal Reserve, gotta go. More libertarian than anything else. But I just don't care what the Southern Poverty Law Center says. Now, of course, I'm aware that enough smears and lies and manipulations, and they will destroy you, your business. They'll destroy your social media presence, your websites. That's right. It is a culture war, fighting over what the future of this country will look like. And the left is trying to just shut down any and all remnants of American history. Not every single person on the left, but the core of the left is literally doing this. That's why I don't care what they say. I don't pay attention. I'm surprised that so many conservatives are so worried about what the media is saying about them. Stop engaging with these people. I don't care about what the SPLC says for the same reason I don't really care all that much about what the Global Times says. Communist opinions are worthless to me. But considering China isn't in, well, maybe they are. But look, there's a reason to go over this, and I think it's for this reason, to explain to you. Sure, they're going to smear Ben Shapiro and go after him. And then they'll try to cripple infrastructure for the Daily Wire. But that just means that if you're sitting in the battlefield that is controlled by the left, don't be surprised when they ban you. Facebook, absolutely controlled by the left. The Daily Wire thing, that's a pressure release valve. Let's read. NPR says, the conservative podcast host and author's personal Facebook page has more followers than the Washington Post. And he drives an engagement machine unparalleled by anything else on the world's biggest social networking site. An NPR analysis of social media found that over the past year, stories published by the site Shapiro founded, the Daily Wire, received more likes, shares, and comments on Facebook than any other news publisher by a wide margin. Even legacy news organizations that have broken major stories or produced groundbreaking investigative work don't come close. Take a look at this line chart. They say, the line chart shows the monthly average engagement, likes, shares, and comments per article of 9 U.S. news sources on Facebook, 5 mainstream organizations, and 4 non-mainstream conservative ones. For more than a year, the non-mainstream outlets have posted more polarizing content and drawn more engagement. This is a lie, my friends. You can see the Daily Wire is the biggest. You can see there's many others. The green ones are mainstream, Fox News, NBC. And then you can see the non-mainstream conservative. It's funny. I mean, is Fox News conservative? What does that mean? Sure, they're mainstream, though. The funny thing is, these are engagements, not views. It is very obvious what is happening. The people who are reading sites like the Daily Wire and The Blaze and the Western Journal, and what else do we have here? Breitbart. This is la résistance. These are the people outside the establishment who oppose the establishment, and they're talking with each other on these platforms. They're engaging with each other on Facebook over this news. Why? There's nowhere else to do it. The mainstream is pumping out trash. What I love is they say it's polarizing. Is it? I would have assumed 5 years of CNN screaming Russia and Rachel Maddow's lies over and over again. Well, we'll be careful for litigious reasons. Her misinformation that she's put out, lie implies it was intentional. So it's misinformation and disinformation, whichever one. I don't know. Whatever. You get it. She's wrong. That stuff that's put out by them, that's not polarizing. Coming out saying that Donald Trump may be an asset of the Soviets that don't exist anymore. Yes, quite literally, MSNBC pushed that narrative. That's okay and not polarizing? That I find incredible. They say Daily Wire articles with headlines such as book review, proof that wokeness is projection by nervous, racist white women who can't talk to minorities without elaborate codes, regularly garners tens of thousands of shares for the site. And Shapiro is turning that Facebook reach into a rapidly expanding, cost-efficient media empire, one that experts worry may be furthering polarization in the U.S. Gee, I don't know, maybe like the Vice article that said trans women of color are being brutally killed by police and why this matters for, Black Lives Matter or whatever. Maybe those articles were polarizing as well. So don't come out to me and act like you care all of a sudden. And that, my friends, should be the perfect bit of evidence. So these are not serious people. They are a political faction by which under their umbrella there are many sub-factions, and they don't like you, and they're not speaking to you. They don't want to speak to you. Neither does the president. Their worldview is constructed based on these manipulative, hyper-partisan websites. Oh, and I know. You're saying right now, but Tim, you're reading an article about the Daily Wire, which is a hyper-partisan website. Oh, I know. Absolutely. Because it is a bifurcation in American culture. The culture war at one point was an argument over what was going to be in our culture. Now it's two completely separate ecosystems that are pointing the finger at each other, no longer talking to each other in any capacity. Now, they were at some point. Not anymore. Now NPR can literally ignore the fact they're writing about themselves because it doesn't matter. Tactics don't matter. And that's something, I really thought about recently, about tactics. When you look at what Antifa is trying to do, the left doesn't care because they're like, but Nazis are bad. So anything they do to anyone must be justified, right? Yeah, I disagree with that. I operate on principles, not tribalism. So if I see someone on the right or left do something bad, I'll be like, that was a bad thing. And therein lies a bit of a weakness. When tribalists will lie, cheat, and steal to protect their own, but use those same manipulations to go after their enemies, that's a disadvantage for those who are principled. Quote, there's a demand amongst certain subsets of the public for outrage politics, said Jamie Settle, director of the Social Networks and Political Psychology Lab at the College of William and Mary in Virginia. This happens on both the left and the right, but the people who do this on the right have just found a lot more successful ways of doing it, which is a lie. An absolute lie. Why? Why is it that the mainstream media produces the same outrage trash and they make more money and they attract venture capital and they get their guy elected and they block breaking news stories from, say, the New York Post? They are lying. Although Ben Shapiro is getting a lot of engagement on Facebook, he doesn't represent the entirety of anti-establishment politics in this country. Sorry, even though we can make fun of CNN and MSNBC's low ratings, when you combine ABC, NBC, CBS, MSNBC, CNBC, etc., their ratings are substantially higher and greater than any conservative or anti-establishment platform. That's the game. They say the Daily Wire didn't respond, but I love this. The site produces little original reporting, but instead mostly repackages journalism from traditional news organizations with a conservative slant. That alone wouldn't be newsworthy. The circle of life online means information is written and rewritten in a seemingly infinite loop. It is. It's hilarious. But the Daily Wire has turned anger into an art form and recycled content into a business model. In May, the Daily Wire generated more Facebook engagement on its articles than the New York Times, the Washington Post, NBC News, and CNN combined. You know what this shows? It shows the people who read those outlets, New York Times, WAPO, NBC News, and CNN, don't engage with it. They'll look at the article and they'll go, huh. They read the headline and they go, huh. And that's it. The engagement you see on Ben Shapiro's page might actually also be from leftists arguing against them. And I'm willing to bet a decent amount, maybe a third. If you look at these pages, you'll see many people saying Ben Shapiro's a nut. And they call that engagement as if it's still good for Ben Shapiro. The shares are good, but engagements as a whole are very different. All right. I don't know what Huffington Post has on the front page. Let's just see what's on the Huffington Post's front page. COVID Olympics, first U.S. team member positive. Oh, no. Fear-mongering, they'd call it. What do they got? Top U.S. health officials, more warnings about COVID. GOP rep Ron Johnson skewered an ad for claiming insurrectionists were peaceful. Rep Matt Gaetz wails about his free speech rights, then rips loser protesters. Huh. Really? Okay. Huffington Post is a bit much like the Daily Wire in that sense. Oh, but they're certified good. Oh, their information is gathered responsibly. Thanks, NewsGuard, for your unbiased approach. Another GOP red line in infrastructure, making sure people pay their taxes. Those Republicans, they're just so awful. Vox.com. Now, Vox isn't as rage baity, but it is very much left biased. It's extremely left biased. But I think the better example is like Media Matters, which is considered credible, but is literally just rage bait, substantially worse than the Daily Wire. The Daily Wire, of course, writes their news and writes about cultural issues and targets the left and frames things from a conservative perspective. And they're allowed to have those opinions. But Media Matters literally just writes nasty things about conservatives to make people angry, to raise money, probably to get conservative messaging removed from the internet. I think that's fairly obvious, as do many other outlets. Over at NPR, conservative news websites drive more Facebook engagement. Non-mainstream conservative, you can see it's more than double the mainstream news. This is not indicative of Ben Shapiro being more successful than CNN. It's indicative of the fact that people who are engaging with non-mainstream news are engaging with it. We have a problem in this country. A problem with people who just read headlines, don't read the news. And boy, is that hilarious. The latest story from The Guardian. New leaked documents seem to suggest that Putin has compromat on Trump. And then I look at the comments on Reddit and they're like, they're all screaming like this proves it. And then you read the article and The Guardian's like, the leak is highly unusual and unconfirmed. And I'm like, oh, there we go. But these people don't engage. So you know what you find? You know what I find? There's probably a reason why someone like me, a disaffected liberal from Chicago is probably more in agreement with conservatives because we understand what reality is. One of my favorite examples, Shinzo Abe of Japan and Trump standing above the koi fish pond. And then the camera zooms in on Trump and Trump dumps all of the food into the pond. And all the leftists start screaming like, our president's a moron. You're supposed to just lightly toss it in. What's he so stupid? Turns out the video was digitally manipulated. In fact, Shinzo Abe had thrown in the food first and Donald Trump followed suit. But the camera zoomed in so you couldn't see Shinzo Abe. The average Democrat voter and leftist has no idea that happened. So what is engagement? Well, it's someone posting on Ben Shapiro's article saying, that's not true, I saw the video. And someone responding with a clip of the video and then and them saying, look at this, here's the real video. And then someone responding to that video with, wow, I didn't realize that. A conversation. Most of these leftist outlets, they've gotten rid, or I should say many of them, have gotten rid of their comments sections. Can't have the truth getting out as people write how you're lying to them. But here's what I see happening, and here's how this is important. The rise of the Daily Wire. This is, like I said, la resistance. It is people who are anti-establishment, who don't completely agree. A lot of libertarians fight with conservatives right now, especially over adult content, if you know what I mean. On the left, it's a cult. I love this post. There was one post, and it's like the Trump style sign, and it says, "You're in a cult. He lost. Get over it." And I'm like, I wonder who that's for. Like the fringe sect of QAnon people, because it ain't for the Daily Wire viewers and listeners, watchers, readers, and it ain't for my audience or for you guys. There's a lot of people come in and say, you're wrong, Tim. They post Q stuff. But for the most part, I've never been about any of that. And I actually got the Trump supporters are just absolutely furious with me for saying that Trump lost because Joe Biden's in the White House. I understand there's a lot more nuance to what's going on, but I'm not here to pander to anybody's feelings. So what is this? When they write you're in a cult, certainly not talking to us. Oh, it's you. You don't read the articles. You don't engage with the stories. You just look at them and say, and that's it. And you blindly believe the lies they pump out every single day and are only getting worse. And it's obvious to anybody who's paying attention. Yeah, when you actually read the articles and you're like, wait, the Guardian said the leak was really unusual and they couldn't confirm it? Well, then it must be fact, right? No, then you're like, oh, okay, so it's probably not true. That's right. But the people who only read the headlines believe it's confirmed now. They found the documents on Trump. Spare me. Y'all are in a cult, and it's creepy. Authoritarian's gonna authoritarian. Well, best of luck to Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire. Congratulations on your success and the desperate attempts from the mainstream media to ignore their own problems and come after you. You're doing well. Let me just break it down in a couple simple ways to explain to you how divided we are. When I say we're divided, I don't mean that we're like standing across from each other and looking at each other with a mean look. I mean, the divide has become so wide, I can't even see the left anymore. Case in point, this. Why are they smearing Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire? They're not talking about their faults. They're not talking about their crimes because what they do is allowed. Well, because they're doing it for their cause is righteous. So when you hear about a war and one side says, God is on my side, and then on the other side of the war, they say, God is on my side. That's exactly it. If you had one culture and one community, they'd be talking about how God is on our side. So long as they write articles condemning the tactics that they use, but only when used by the right, you should know that they're viewing you as an enemy, not a reader, not a friend, not an ally, as something to be ended and conquered. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.